the hardest thing to do is to get, especially in today's day and age, is to get your kids to be curious and to get your kids
Mm,
to tinker. Those are probably the
mm.
two biggest things. How do you instill a sense of curiosity?
Welcome to Extraordinary. I'm Forbes Shannon. With me, as always, my co host.
Christine Butler.
And we have an awesome guest for you today. Here on The Extraordinary Show, we highlight extraordinary people that do extraordinary things and they get nominated by someone who's been on the show before. This guest was nominated
By me.
by Christine. This guest and Christine go way back, and we're excited to dive into this extraordinary story. So, Christine, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah.
Who do we have here today?
We have Satish Nandapurkar today, and I am so excited for this episode because I personally know Satish, and he has taught me all the things I need to know about networking.
Oh, I'm excited to learn this.
Yes. Yeah. He is a fun guest that we have today. I can't wait for you guys to hear his stories. But we did welcome Satish to our show because of his extraordinary traits that he has proven and showed the whole world globally in the trade of finance and marketing. And the list goes on with what Satish has done. So, Satish, tell us a little bit about your history in business.
Welcome
what
to
you
the
kind of
show.
do.
Welcome to the show. We're
Yeah,
happy you're
thank
here.
you.
That's
Thanks
a
for having
crazy
me,
introduction. You got a
Christine.
whole laundry list of stuff
Uh,
going on, huh?
Thanks for nominating me, Christine. I don't really think of myself as extraordinary, but it's always good to see you. And Forbes, I know we met that one time at the comedy show, and I'm excited to connect with you again.
An extraordinary comedy show, if I may say so
It
myself,
was an
even
extraordinary
though I
comedy
was in the
show.
show.
It was
Yeah.
it was it was so much fun. Some great people there. So
Yeah.
thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on the show. Um,
Of
Absolutely.
course.
Christine, what did you ask me? I'm so happy to be here. I forgot what you asked me.
Yeah, just if you want to give us just a little bit of a history of kind of how you got to where you're at now. I know you have a lot of different avenues that you go down in business, finance. Kind of just tell us a little bit about your history.
Sure. I mean, look, I'm old, so I have a lot of history. I graduated from college or graduated from high school in 1980. I graduated from college in 1984. So it's been a long time and a lot of experience through all that. My parents were immigrants. I grew up, in the United States in the 1970s, very, very, very middle class, small home, nice neighborhood, classic American kind of upbringing. I think, again, I don't think of myself as extraordinary. I think of myself as everyone else I grew up around. But there's clearly some things when I look back on that I did that were maybe above and beyond, when you put it
Explain
all
things.
together. Pardon? Yeah,
Like
just
what?
well, I mean, I excelled in school, which now every Asian kid does pretty much, I hear, but back then there were so few Asian kids that it was extraordinary, I guess, to be
Right,
an Asian kid in Oklahoma winning math
right,
competitions or something at the age of
right.
12 and 13. I was lucky enough that I had enough of a resume and no one had heard of the school that I got into MIT when I was 16 and I went to MIT when I was 16. So
Wait,
to
you
me,
said
that was
16?
16, yes.
Yeah.
To me, that was really nothing. It was just going to college. Today,
At
it
16.
turned into something that's extraordinary because it's so hard to get in. I don't think there's any way I could
Right.
get in today with that same resume, but back then, luckily, no one knew what MIT was, right? So it just made it easier or unless certainly not in Oklahoma. So
I have a question for you. So, growing up and you realize that you were good at these math competitions in Oklahoma. I'm not sure if Oklahoma's known for its math competitions. Like, how did you find your niche? And then how did you have the courage to really step into it?
right. So there's where you get kind of lucky with parents, right, that push you along.
Mhm.
Mm.
So, I had parents that understood the value of an education. I was an only child. So all their efforts got pushed into me. So incredibly lucky, right? That my parents were their highest priority in life was making sure I was successful. So they spent a lot of time with me back in a day where STEM wasn't really the emphasis, pushing me towards math and science. And so that's where I kind of excelled. I luckily was a social enough kid and I had enough somewhat coordinated skills to be able to play sports and be social at the same time and understand that had some value in life. But to get there was really just my parents that pushed me onto math and science and made me go above and beyond. Right? I mean, as however smart you are, you have to work. Right? Work is such an important part of it. And my parents would keep me focused on doing all the work necessary to be at the top of whatever game I needed to be at. Right? That mattered to
Ah.
them.
So
So
how has that carried over into your own parenting? You have kids, right? How old are your kids?
So my son is almost 30. He's 29. My daughter is 20.
Okay.
You just set the bar high for them. There's such a big gap there that with my son, I invested a lot of time and set the bar high in terms of what you need to do in school and where you need to go and what you need to achieve. And here's your roadmap. Here's your plan. You've got to get at least these grades. You got to take at least these AP classes. You've got to play at least one or two sports. You need to play a musical instrument, just the map, right, of what you need to do. But it was a lot of effort. It was tiring. So I have, I have I can see now all the value and effort that my parents put into me. The hard thing is, your effort is a finite amount of time. So you're trying to think about what's the better way to use my time? Is it to get me ahead and then to be able to do charitable things or to be able to show my kids the world or to be able to make sure my kids are safer or, you know, have open minds and can do whatever they want to do? Or is it still investing the time in my kids? Right.
Right.
The one thing I've learned as I've grown up is everything's a trade-off. Things are finite resources. It probably comes from taking a lot of economics classes. And so I see how that transforms. My parents didn't really have a lot of other opportunities. So it was all 100% me. Now I'm at a generation where, thanks to my parents, I have other opportunities. And you kind of have to figure out what you want to do as a parent. Like, where do you invest all that? I know Christine does a great job as a parent, with her two
Thank you.
kids and how
Well, one
she
of the things that you
focuses on
always
them.
taught me as a mentor was that if there's going to be anything you invest in, it's your children. That's the number one investment.
Mm.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so you kind of have to think about, is it time? Is it money? Is it showing them the world? Like, what's the best way to take the kids to the next level, right? Do my kids
Right.
need to go to MIT or do they need maybe a broader education where they can be more social and network more, but be good people, be good humans at the end of
Right.
the day? That's probably the highest thing that you
Be a
want your
good
kids to be,
human.
is just good-hearted humans. But so how do you develop that? As sort of the next step in the evolution of your legacy, right? And your kids are
Right.
your greatest legacy.
Right. Now, speaking of next step, after MIT, where did that take you?
So I didn't have any money to go to MIT. My parents were very middle class, so I paid for
Okay.
MIT with an ROTC scholarship. So when I graduated at the age of 20, I was a second lieutenant in the Air Force. I got commissioned in the Air Force. So
Thank you for your
maybe a
service.
little weird. I think my commanding officer had told me I was the youngest officer at the time, not of all time, but at the time in the Air Force, because most are at least 21 or 22. You have to have graduated college, right? So I came in at the age of 20. I couldn't have a drink at the officers club. No one carded me as a second lieutenant, but
Right.
you technically couldn't have a drink. Um, but I spent 4 years in the Air Force. Great experience. To this day, it still stays as a resume item, and
Yeah. Boston in
as
the
I
80s
interact
just
with congressmen
sounds
or
like so much
senators
fun.
or do different things, the fact that that's on there is kind of a big thing, and I really enjoy it. I'm proud of the fact that I did that. Got a lot of experience at it. Wholeheartedly recommend it to anybody as a way of starting out. But because of that, I had no student loans. They paid for all my college. And in return, so I came out fairly financially secure. And I spent 4 years in the Air Force during that time. So that
Well,
was the
thanks
next
again for your
immediate step.
service.
Thank you.
Yeah. So MIT at 16, youngest officer at 20. How are you going to top that? What's the next step after that? I'm
So
excited to hear that.
when I was in college, and the other thing that I always find is how random life is, right? Like how totally, completely random life is. We could go into Christine and Aaron, and how they met. Christine came with me to a networking event, and she met
What was
Aaron
the
at the
nerd?
network,
What was it called again?
the AZ Nerd Network, right? Which
It
I
was
had
the
only
Nerd
started.
Network, guys.
Yeah, and it was a networking event for people that were involved in technology and startups in some way. And Christine wanted to get involved in educational tech and ed tech, possibly. And so I was like, why don't you come along to this? There'll be a whole bunch of founders there and investors, and you've got this perfect background for that, right? So she goes with me, meets Aaron. Whole life goes a different path, right? Aaron's life goes a different path. So, but the only reason I even joined that was because of certain things that happened to me that opened up some time on my schedule. So if those things wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't be
Sure.
going, I wouldn't have taken Christine, and now lives wouldn't have changed. So I'm
We
always
wouldn't be here
fascinated.
now.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by all these little going back in time and looking at all these little tiny things that ended up with big tsunami of changes in life. And so one of the tiny things for me was summer between my sophomore and junior year in college. My parents had moved to San Antonio, Texas. I got a job at USAA. And they hired me in their what was called the data processing area. I was a computer science major. I was sort of helping them build databases, right? And it was a boring job, coding and building databases at the time. But I sat next to this older dude who was like, look, you're a sharp kid. You don't work in coding and data programming or data processing. You want to get into investment management. Like this was 1982. Math is just starting to be a part of investments. Computers are just starting to be a part of investments. And those guys do really well. And applying your skills and knowledge into something like that is really where you want to go. Here's a book, read the book. And I don't read books. So I probably still had the book somewhere. I wish I would have, because it was a book about Warren Buffett. I'd probably be 3 times, 5
I was
times
gonna
as
ask.
wealthy as I had read that book. But it got me involved and interested in investments, right? So the next summer I came back and USA hired me back. And I said, look, I want to work in your investment management division. Every life insurance company, every big insurance company has a big investment division, right? And so they put me into their investment division, which completely changed my life. So sitting next to this guy, which was probably a random thing, there were 3 or 4 open seats on the floor, that summer job. And they just happened to sit me next to this older guy who happened to take the time to get to know me and say, don't do this. And that was my path. I was going to do computer programming and maybe get an MBA. And, that was the path I was going. He changed my entire path. And the next summer, I worked in investment management. And there's an interesting story in there too, but that completely changed my world, going that direction and learning more when the next summer I came back. But it's so interesting how little things like that can completely change your world and change your path.
Yeah. So when you look back on your life and you have all of these little random moments, what's the one moment that really stands out to you as extraordinary?
That's a great question. Um,
Yeah.
I'll have to think about the extraordinary.
Yeah.
Let me add on to that story to tell you
Yeah,
how
please.
that really affected everything. I get into the investment management area. I'm 19, summer after my junior year. I'm going to the Air Force. They're like, "What's the project that we could give you that we don't know anything about?" It's all portfolio managers and analysts, right? They none of them have grown up with computers. They've just rolled out IBM PCs. It's 1983, big boxes, black screens, green lettering on the screens. And they have the software that they've been told they can take all the stuff they do in terms of balance sheet and income statement analysis and put it on the software. It was called Lotus 123, the very first software,
Okay.
spreadsheet software program. Nobody knew how to use it. was version 1A. They handed it to me, gave me an IBM PC to work in the office and said, can you figure this out and figure out how to get spreadsheets, how to take everything we do on big sheets of paper up on the wall and get it into those spreadsheets. I was like, sure, I'd love this. So I ended up being at the forefront of using spreadsheets in financial analysis and financial markets, probably at the very, very beginning, because Lotus 123 was
Yeah.
on version 1A in 1983. So that carried me even into the Air Force. I integrated spreadsheets into what the Air Force did in their analysis. And then every job on Wall Street was, was being the guy that knew how to build new innovative products
Yeah.
using these tools like spreadsheets and other types of things to do it at a tenth the time at a tenth the cost. Right. So I look back
Well,
at
even
that
just
moment, you know, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, what a unique perspective, right? So you start off with Lotus, the first, edition of it, and now we're here using chat that can give you something in 2.5 seconds. Like that's a crazy perspective, being at the
Oh, it
forefront.
really is. It really is. So even to this day, I do, fast forward, now we're 40 years forward. So spreadsheets
Right.
changed everything because again, imagine the way they would do this, they would have an analyst in with their portfolio manager and they would have big white sheets all over the board. Here was the income statement from last year and here was the four
Yeah.
quarters from so far this year and then the previous year and what do we think the trends are and let's
Mhm.
write it up on a board and do all that stuff. Now it's all in front of them in a spreadsheet. The productivity enhancement from just a spreadsheet was
Yeah.
incredible. Like not 2x, but 10, 15x once they started integrating all that stuff in. Then you get to Wall Street and I get into trading environments and to be able to prototype new financial products and model them, price them, trade them, sell them to customers, risk manage them in matter of days as opposed to in the matter of 6 months really
Yeah.
changed the game on
That's
Wall Street as
crazy.
well. So now
Yeah.
ChatGPT is doing it all over again, right? It's like
Mhm.
I do things today where I'm doing machine learning, data science, looking for patterns to help us predict which way markets are going. I normally would have hired a couple of I hate to say this, PhD level guys for hundreds of thousands of dollars each to help me.
Mhm.
Now I'm kind of using ChatGPT and Gemini, some combination of the two of them as my two data scientists. Let's see what ChatGPT says. Let's see what Gemini says, and having conversations with both of them and asking them how can I build these models? How can I qualify data better? How can I do all this stuff?
Yeah.
It's a little scary,
So
to
is asking your kids to get in on something early, like how you did with spreadsheets, is that something you're doing? And if so, what do you think is the next early thing?
That's a great question.
I I I I definitely think um, that so I definitely think getting in on understanding how to use AI properly is a huge thing, but using it, not building it. Like using
Mm.
it to do things better. My business partner's son is 13 and he uses probably ChatGPT 2 hours a day. He talks to his girlfriend based on ChatGPT. He's got all his message stream in there. What should I say next? I want to say it this way in my ability. He talks to his grandma that way. He
Oh
asks all
yeah.
the questions. His first thought now, and mine is too, whenever a problem comes in like anything, if I want to know about anything in politics, I follow college football. I take all the podcasts and throw it into Gemini and ask it to summarize it for me and create a two-person podcast, that I can work
Okay.
out to, but then I don't have to
Yes.
listen to 5 1-hour podcasts. I can listen to one 40-minute podcast that's got it all summarized that Gemini's created for me. And I can be working out and that's one workout. Right. And
Mhm.
so that type of stuff is I think being able to use it to become more knowledgeable, to be more productive. That's kind of one thing that everyone needs to do. Everyone needs to
Right.
know how to use these tools to be more personally productive in their life, given what these tools can do for them. Right.
Do
And that's
you
what this,
think there's a tipping point, like a point of diminishing returns of using it too much? Have you seen any of that?
Um, I haven't gotten there yet. Like I with the new capabilities that keep coming out, I don't
Uh,
know if there's going to be a tipping point. I find that it gets better and better for me and that it becomes big help for me. I will say that I think social skills are going to be important because at some point I think humans like to interact. And I think technology so far has been detrimental to that. Social media,
Correct.
dating apps, all that crap. I think it's been detrimental to that, you know,
Yeah.
mm,
on balance. So at some
Correct.
point, we're going to get back to that. We'll probably have some AI that is our personal assistant that helps us function, but we still have to be social beings with people in real life, right? And
you
so
Right.
I
still have
think
to be
those
social
skills.
beings in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that we stand for here at Extraordinary is be more human. So we don't believe in resisting AI at all. In fact, we believe in using AI to be more human, right? Creating overconsumption is huge, right? So a lot of us are consuming a lot of information and not creating with AI,
Mm.
right? To just create something extraordinary. Wondering if you use AI to channel more into your humanness.
Mm.
Like, how do you use AI to be more human in your world?
Um, Great question. I definitely have used AI as a therapist in the past, right?
Totally.
To just think through some of my thoughts, like and to test some of the things that I'm thinking, like, and to also take things that I'm seeing in the world that don't have anything to do with finance, don't have anything to do with math or computers or anything else, just human nature types of articles that spur my thinking, throw it in and say something like, I just saw this post on Instagram. Like, tell me what you think the truth is. Is this really a trend? I'm seeing a lot more posts like this, posts that are, for example, posts that are telling young people don't get married,
Yeah.
or wait to get married or don't get married because it's just too problematic or whatever.
Right.
And what's behind all this? Like I will try to figure it out so that if people are asking me my opinion, I can distill it down a little bit better and be better organized in my thoughts, with some of
Yeah.
that, but also how I can apply my own human perspective to it. Um, I think what Google did was it made it so that we want to research a topic and it comes back with 7, 8, 10 links that we have to go out and research. It's just an overload of information and we have to figure out how to distill it. AI at least allows us, the trick is to be very, very, give AI a lot of context, tell it a lot of what you're thinking, interact with it, and then it can kind of come back and help us channel those thoughts. But at the end of the day, we still have to interact with people. So I do like this whole idea of how do we be more human given the technology, and
Right.
that's one thing I tell my kids, and I push my kids slightly differently than I would push myself. They're in a different place and I push them to be more social, to network, get to meet as many people as they can, expand their horizons, and be as social as possible.
Yeah, I wanna dig into that. So you're, in this new age of technology, in addition to being more social, what are some other ways that you're pushing your kids differently than maybe you were pushed?
I, um, you know, I, I think the world is changing so fast. Like 10 years ago, I would have pushed a kid and said, like, if you want to be guaranteed to do really, really well, get a computer science degree, right? Get a computer science degree. Now, I don't even know. Like I see the listings for computer science majors as a software engineer dropping, like, from what I've read, 40, 50, 60% on Indeed. So I don't know what direction to push them in. Do they need to be
Mm,
media creators? Is more and more of life going to be about entertainment? Like, we need
Right.
entertainment. Is more and more life going to be about trying to get people together in real life? because they're so on their phones and everything else that there'll be more. I don't know where the value in life will be, but it's probably not going to be in humans coding machines anymore.
Mm,
Yeah, and I
Well, if
think that's a
it's
common, thing that parents are dealing with. Like, how do I guide my child into a future that is uncertain?
mm.
It's a huge question. So, Satish, uh, what advice would you give these newer generations? I mean, you've hit such levels of success. Give us some advice for these upcoming
So
kiddos.
I think the hardest thing to do is to get, especially in today's day and age, is to get your kids to be curious and to get your kids
Mm,
to tinker. Those are probably the
mm,
two biggest things. How do you instill a sense of curiosity? How do you express, how do you get them to tinker with stuff? Because there seems to be a real desire not to fail, and failure is a
Mhm.
part of learning. And
mhm,
how do you get them off their phone to just be more social? I think as opposed to learning something, I think you need to learn how to use these tools. You don't need to be a rocket scientist, but you need to know how to use these tools, right? The tools are going to make you so much more productive. Use them properly, understand their limitations, stay on top of them, that type of thing. But the three things that I think are really important is, how do I interact with humans? How do I be social and network? How do I tinker and get over my fear of failure? Just build
mm,
things or do things, or create things. You want people to be creators, not consumers, right?
mm,
Correct.
You're going to lose in life if you're a consumer. You're going to win if you're a creator, right? It could be
okay.
anything. It could be a podcast. It could be art. It could be music. But whatever you do, strive to be a creator and strive to be the best creator you are. You could be a writer, right? Strive to be the best at it. Just be a creator. Don't be a consumer all the time. And then just be curious. Be curious about what other people are doing. Like, ask questions. I love to meet new people. I love to meet younger people and older people. I love to hear stories about how people got to be successful. I love to hear kind of how different the world is for a younger person, right? And just
Mhm.
what challenges they face relative to what I did. It's it, I find it really stimulating so I'm just curious about stuff. I think, and I try to figure out how to put that into systems that help me understand it better. So that's where ChatGPT or Gemini come in really
Oh, yeah.
handy.
I want to stay on this thread of curiosity. So I'm writing a book that will be coming out this year called "I Don't Know Shit: The Extraordinary Power of Knowing You Know Nothing." And the whole thesis of it is that um, in the absence of curiosity, you look like a fool. And that's all the times I looked like a fool because I wasn't curious. I also know that it's funny. I just said no, even though my book's called "I Don't Know Shit." It is true that there are curiosities harder as you get older. So, is there like a trick that you have that maybe you use to catch yourself when you're maybe not being curious, to remind yourself in the moment, I can be more curious about this?
Um, Yes, so that's a great question. What's the good trick? I try to pause every now and then, and I do
Mm,
use technology, but I try to pause if I see something or hear something and I'm go, God, that's kind of interesting. This is where the Geminis of the world come in handy. I throw it in and I will pull out my phone, put it on voice mode and say, I just heard this, and then I give Gemini some detail. I just heard this on television. That doesn't sound right to me. It might be something social. It might be something economic. It might be something else. Can you give me a quick background thing? Does this seem right? Like, what's the truth about it? Does it seem right? What's going on here in society that's causing this problem? So that it will just give me a readout, or it'll read it back to me. And then I'll try and interact with that a couple of times before I move on. So, and then it's on my history. So I can always go back to it at a later stage. And when I'm just sitting around bored, if at some point I can go back and continue with that line of thought because it's there. But that's what I think is great about these tools is
Mhm.
the easiest way to be curious is ask a lot of questions, but also when something strikes your brain, use one of these tools to just memorialize it and ask the tool, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? I always, I can't tell you how many streams I have with Gemini where I just say at the end of it,
Yeah.
what do you think? And
Mm,
give me your fair view. What do you think? And it'll give me what it thinks. It's kind
Yeah.
of
So what
cool.
I see is you marry humanness with your AI. So as you're going throughout life, your day, your curiosity, a question that you have immediately, you use AI to become more human, to explore deeper thoughts into humanity.
Yeah, AI is my expert assistant. I just saw
Okay.
this
mhm,
really cool product. I'll have to send you a link to it. I can't remember what it was. It's at CES. It was at the Consumer Electronics Show, but it was a little holographic person, and you can choose your person in there, and it sits on your desk, and it links in, I think, either to Grok or XAI. It's one of Elon Musk's
Okay.
AIs, but it's a holographic person that you can plug in, and it's like this little guy that sits, or woman or whatever you want, or cartoon character that sits there, and you can just talk to it all day long, and it'll give you answers as you're talking. It'll listen to your meetings. It'll give you summations. It'll send stuff to you as you're done. But I thought that was brilliant. But
mhm.
Yeah.
just as an aside, my business partner thinks at some point his son is going to have a robot for a girlfriend. So um,
Look for yourself there.
somewhere down the line, it won't be a weird thing. That 10, 12 years down the line, it won't be a weird thing that you have a robot for a girlfriend.
Yeah. If you can make a prediction in
Mm.
AI, tell us. Let's have fun. What do you think? Where do you see AI going?
We're curious to
Yeah.
hear where you see AI going.
I mean, I've got to kind of share Elon Musk's world on this. I mean, I didn't think we'd get to hear at
Mm,
this
Yeah.
point. I think there was a survey done. I'll have to find it, but like in the mid 2000s or late 2008, 2007, where it might have been after the iPhone came out, but they were talking about, what do you think AI will be able to do? What do you not think computers will be able to do? And probably highest on the list as to what computers will have a hard time ever doing is self-driving cars, right?
Mm.
And so they thought 30, 40, 50 years before that ever shows up. And here we are. Waymos are on the street self-driving. All my Teslas are self-driving. So I pretty much don't drive anymore. I drove from Phoenix to LA and back 99.9% of the time. The car drove for me. So stuff is happening so much faster than we think. It's
mm,
really hard to predict. But I do think we'll have a lot of humanoid robots everywhere in 5, 6, 7, 8 years doing a lot of work. I think AI is moving exponentially fast as to how good it's getting and the types of problems it's solving. Um,
yeah,
I think all of us is going to be 5 years from now, we're going to be turning to AI to solve a lot of problems. Maybe it solves some of the healthcare problems where we have AI that tracks everything and all our readings and everything else. And it probabilistically tells us, here's some of the issues with your body or what you're kind of feeling, and before it goes to a specialist. So
Right.
could
mm,
80% of what you go into a medical office for be handled at home through AI before you go in? And does that cut medical costs? And does that create a
right.
whole new world out there? Or do we just displace a bunch of jobs? I don't know.
Mm,
That one's
mhm.
I'm
Well,
not a
you
futurist
heard it
that
here
way.
first. These
Pardon?
robots are taking over the world.
I think they will. I
Well,
really think they will. It's unbelievable watching what they do today,
yeah.
physically.
So, the one question we love to ask everyone on Extraordinary is what's the next extraordinary thing you're looking forward to in your
Oh,
life?
just so the extraordinary thing is, so I've I've always had a path in my life. Like I find that people don't have that anymore, and I think that is a problem. From the age of
Mm,
16, I had boxes I was checking off. So I had a path. They never quite came the way I thought my path would work out, right? I was very open. I think one thing I did well was I was very open minded to as new opportunities came in, I'd evaluate them, decide what to do. And that's why I say there's just random stuff that would happen that took me different directions, right?
Mm,
So it's like that
mhm.
ball that drops with all the pegs. Think of 40 years of pegs. It hit pegs, it went different directions.
Okay, yeah.
You hit a different
Plinko.
peg and you ended up where you were.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Luckily, I worked hard. I was relatively smart. I ran into some relatively good people. So the peg went in the right direction most of the time, not all the time. Made some mistakes. But I always kind of had a path. And then I would kind of reevaluate as, that I was working towards, and I would kind of reevaluate as new things came my way. Um, I think the most extraordinary thing is right now, I'm not sure I have a path. This is the
Mm.
most, for me, inner extraordinary is I've gotten to the point where I've kind of done everything I've wanted to
The
do
boxes are checked,
professionally.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
my family is good. My extended family is good. I have a lot of friends. I'm working on a couple of ventures. Um, but I'm kind of in this blank slate phase that most people have
Wow.
when they're 16, 17, 18. I'm kind of back to it at this stage of my life. And I'm kind of looking around, taking a little bit of time going, I just want to meet a lot of people, learn a lot of things, be
Well,
curious, um,
Mm.
help
maybe it's
people.
time to start a new list, right?
Possibly.
Go
Yeah. I
skydiving.
go skydiving. Not quite
Call me
there at
up.
skydiving yet, but yeah, there's other things I am there at that's been kind of interesting. So, I should probably go on Joe Rogan. I'd probably be better off discussing some
Yeah.
of those interesting chemicals with Joe Rogan, but, um,
Yeah.
you know, um, but, yeah, it's just I think the extraordinary thing for me is I'm at such a different point in my life that, do I wanna be more spiritual? What do I wanna do? Right? I'm lucky
Uh,
that I've gotten here and I can kind of have a blank slate to start another life.
All right. Well,
wow.
the future is bright
Mhm.
and leading with curiosity, you can't go wrong.
And wide open, it
Yeah.
sounds like. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
Satish,
in some ways, for all of us, right? I think we're at this
right?
massive inflection point with technology and humanness and relationships and society and global aspects that we're at this. I think some things we never imagined are going to happen in the next 5 to 7 years. So you
Yeah,
just maybe
absolutely.
flexibility is another thing we need to add to that list of teaching our kids.
Yeah. Flexibility is a good one. Well, Satish, our time is up, but we thank you so much for spending some time with us here and telling us all the good things, all the extraordinary things in your life. We really appreciate you.
I'm excited to hear the extraordinary people in your network that you wanna have here on Extraordinary, and thank you for such an extraordinary conversation.
Yeah, I've been
As
lucky that
always,
I've had so many extraordinary people helping me. So happy to help go through that. And thanks for having me on this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We
Thank you
really
so
appreciate
much.
it. And as always, you can learn more about Extraordinary at joinextraordinary.com, joinextraordinary.com. I should be in a spelling bee. I'm nailing that. As always, I'm Forbes Shannon,
I'm Christine Butler.
and thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.